Hey everyone, this is Nick from NXT Plants. In this video, I'm going to be going through the plants I'm planning on purging, and I'm also going to show how I go through and select my seedlings, which ones to keep and grow out, and which ones to cull. I think I'm going to start by going through the plants I've had in bins. So these are some of these ones I've been repotting recently, getting them into pots I'm good to sell with, get them rerooted and stuff. First one I want to talk about is here's my Quiniolense PM5 by PM3. I purchased 4 of these. One croaked, got stem rot, didn't catch it in time, when they're pretty small still. And then I have 2 other ones, and then this is the 3rd one. So out of the 3, I prefer the appearance of the other 2. This one's very nice. This was the best growing out of them. Put on the size the fastest and whatnot. It just, it's not quite as round as the other 2, and I was really looking for round ones. But otherwise it's an excellent Quinia. Propped it and it's just taken over this pot. It's already doing another leaf, so this thing is kind of crazy vigorous. Here I've got a prop of my Mag BVEP. I'll make sure I insert a picture. Stand to the side. Yeah, this is just a butt cut I took, and it's now got 2 leaves and its 3rd is on the way. I really like how this Mag BVEP turned out. I think it has really nice vein structure and color, so all around a very good plant. I might grow this one a little bit longer, but probably be trying to rehome it pretty soon. Might see if anyone wants to trade for it. Okay, here we've got a Luxurians crossed with a Crystal Mag. I'm trying to limit the number of Luxurians crosses I had. At one point I had a bunch, but since I have the Hobgoblin and I've got another one coming, but I'll just tell you, and I have a Black Magic coming. So I think between those 2, I've got my 2 Lux hybrids of choice locked down. But this one, it grew really nice. I've already sold the top cut. I kept the piece for myself because I thought I'd maybe want to keep the plant. Since then I've decided against it. Here we got an Ace cross with a Quiniolense prop. I'm hoping it's showing on camera, but it's got really nice pink veins on this emergent. I got 4 of these from Justin Jones. I definitely have my favorite one. I haven't cut that one, I'm growing it out. Then I had 3 other ones, and I think all 3 did well. Yeah, sorry, all 4 of them did well. Didn't have any die. I just sold them on as they either looked too similar to other ones I had, or I found it didn't. The hybrid wasn't what I was looking for. That's usually why I buy multiples. Oh, right. And then there's the one really bad one. That was in my last video. The one that's always orange and causing me problems. That was the bad one. I forgot, because I haven't cut or done anything with that one either. Yeah, I've got my... Oh, I can't resist showing it. Can't resist showing it because it's just one of my favorite plants right now. And oh my gosh, like look at this leaf. How could you not absolutely love it? This is what I was looking for from the hybrid. So when I found, when I picked my favorite that was doing what I was looking for, I was ready to part with the other ones because I don't have the space to grow out 4 of everything. Here we've got my Blue Pap crossed with Red Spider. I call it the Blue Spider. It's just a very nice peltate hybrid. I was hoping it would have the red veins, but it doesn't, and I've tracked down a few other peltate Anthurium that I prefer the vigor and appearance of, so I'm more likely to use them, because I did purchase this one for breeding. Since it was a peltate and I was looking to add some more dark peltate, minimally veined Anthurium. You win some, you lose some. Not all hybrids turn out like what you're looking for. So since it's a healthy growing plant and it's very pretty, it's quite dark, I'm ready to pass it along. Here we've got a Silver Blush, Crystal Hope, I don't know, pick your slightly incorrect name. I purchased this from the local garden center because all of its leaves, up until the ones in my care, had ruffled edges, and out of the batch it was the only one with those ruffled edges. So I was curious to see if that would persist. Once it entered my care, it was being fed, the ruffled edges went away. It's not all that disappointing because it was ultimately like a big box store plant, so I didn't pay too much for it. I've just always enjoyed going to those stores and looking through the trays of like the TC plants to try and find, either variegates or other weird ones. You win some, you lose some. Next up, I've got my Hoya Caudata Sumatra. I just don't have the setup to give this plant the amount of light it needs to look very pretty. It grows great. It just doesn't sun stress. And I think if it's not sun stress, it just is like missing 80% of its appearance. So I think this one is going to leave. I keep experimenting with Hoya, and I think there are a few I want to grow, but by and large, I'm still not the biggest Hoya head. Okay, and then here's one. I'm not going to get rid of this plant. I might sell it as a whole piece. Probably going to prop this and pot it up, since each of these leaves can turn into a whole new plant, and it's got really nice internodal spacing, so it's super easy to chop. Oh yeah, this is Anthurium clademioides. It's a very neat species. Would definitely recommend it if you've got like at least a tent. It's really good in terrariums. Obviously it stays nice and small. I love growing mine in the terrarium. It's just climbing up the back wall in a really dark corner. So I would highly recommend it if you have a terrarium, and even if you just have to grow a tent, it's an excellent species. Next up, we've got my Quechua queen. I mean, ultimately the reason I think I'm ready to part with this plant is I have the Rhodolantianum, and that's just everything this plant wishes it was. As horrible as that is to say. Similar leaf shape, but of course the Rhodo is velvet and much thicker and hardier. Nothing wrong with the Quechua Queen. I definitely loved it when I first got it, but it was always to hold the place of the Rhodolantianum, and as soon as I have that, I was ready to part with it. Yeah, not much else to say. It's a good hybrid. It grows really fast, but to me it was always just a placeholder for the Rhodo, and I think I'm now ready to part with it. Next up, we've got another Hoya. This is a globulosa. It's very neat Hoya, nice and fuzzy. This one's kind of like cheating because I'm still gonna have a Hoya globulosa. It's just I prefer this one. It's called Cow Bang, and I just prefer the bumpiness of the leaf over the more flat, elongated leaves that this one does. So I think definitely gonna keep this one because I really enjoy this Hoya. But the regular globulosa, since I've got this one, I think I'm ready to part with it. Next up, I got props of my Solanum ulianum. Might be saying that wrong, I can't remember. They're in water. They took really well, just a bunch of mid-cuts. I thought I liked the plant, and then I grew it, and it's kind of grosses me out. It's like a little too sort of hairy and soft. And when you brush into it, it feels very uncomfortable. Also, I was growing it trailing and it wasn't looking the best. I think it can look really great as like a full bushy plant. So I might give it one last shot and pot up a few of these in a pot and see how a hanging basket looks. But for the time, at this current moment, I'm kind of over it. Next up, we have I'm looking at mites on the back of the leaf. They're predatory ones, but I always double check. This is my my original regale. I got a second one later, which I think I prefer the vein shape of, and the color's a lot better. And I really don't even have space for one regale, let alone two. So I'm making the choice to get this one rehabbed and then off to a new home. Yeah, I think like I said, I simply don't have the space for two. And I got one, God, I paid $10 and it came and it was like chest size. I've since rotted the growth point, so I'm regrowing that one, but it's definitely one I prefer the look of. Okay, next up we've got this Pat Bevep. I've just never been able to get this plant happy, and at this point I want the pot back, and I want the space in my tent back. It is gorgeous. It is so dark and it's so red, but for the life of me I cannot make it happy. So I think I'm ready for the space in the pot back and to stop punishing myself. Gigas top cut from the one in my cabinet. Got it all potted up and it's rooted. I really like this species of philodendron. It's definitely one I'll always keep. I personally think it's prettier than the Melanochrysum, and it's a hell of a lot easier. Okay, next one I want to talk about is my white monster here. Probably guess why it's not on the list. It's not very white. Or guess why I'm not keeping it. It's not very white. The more I learn about the white monster, I love its large form. However, I'm not the biggest fan of the constant march towards green. And that's about it. This one I'm like 50-50 on whether or not I'm going to keep growing it. It's really going to depend how the props do. If I get a prop that shoots a bunch of nice characteristic white monster leaves, I might hang on to that one for the time being. However, after growing my friend's Mexican mint, my standard for mint monstera has stepped up a little bit. So we'll see. This one is very much in the air. This one here is my Forgetii crossed with red crystal. See, it very heavily takes after the red crystal. the cats chewed on this one. Pretty simple. I have a second flowering red crystal. So my second flowering one is now my Tazula purple emergent one. And I don't really need 3, let alone 4, because I have a red emergent Tazula right behind it. And they're just exhibiting slightly higher color than this one. It's a great plant, nice and compact grower. However, it was beaten to the punch and it flowered slower than the other ones. I was going to keep it around and potentially breed with it a little bit, see how it would go with something like the Wonder Boy or something else. But since I have a second one now to do that with, I'm going to stick to that. And yeah, I got to give this guy a repot and then find it a new home. It's very nice. It does a good red crystal emergence and holds the color for a long time. However, I just have other red crystals that are a little bit more colorful. Okay, here we've got my Forgetii Lux. The cats have attacked this one quite a few times, and then they ripped it off the shelf, so it got all beat up. I'll show you the emergent. A cute emergent poking through. I mean, pretty simply, it's a Forgetii Lux, but it's not fully peltate. It's got some lobe action, and ultimately, I had this plant to put Forgetii on. I wanted to make Forgetii Lux crossed again with Forgetii to get a little bit more velvet, a little bit toned down the Lux, and hopefully fully round offspring, sort of like a Forgetii hobgoblin. And I harvested the batch. I got very low yield, very, very, very low yield. Hopefully I'll get a handful that will germinate and do okay, but that'll be if I'm lucky. I think I collected like 10 seeds total. I collected 7 seeds, and quite a few of them were very small. So see if anything good comes from it, but this one has now served its purpose. I gotta rehab it, get it looking pretty again, and then I'll get it off to a new home since I've completed the breeding project I wanted to do with it. And one more philodendron before I move on to the seedlings. This is my top coat of my strawberry shake, and I think my time with variegated plants like this is over. I didn't think this day would ever come, but it reverted. Well, it went all yellow. It had been trending that way. I'm so sick of variegated plants. I try and size them and then they revert, and then I cut them, and the one that grows with good variegation, by the time it's sized up again, it's reverted and I've got to cut it again and I'm back to square one. I just don't have the time, patience, or the talent for these variegated philodendron. As much as I love them, and I will probably still keep buying them, they'll also be leaving my house. I have a smaller piece of this I might keep because it's marbly again, but I'm not ready for my heart to be broken again by this plant. Got it for a really good deal locally, so I'm not too upset or anything about it. Sometimes they just revert on you. That's why I think I'm generally more a fan of the nice dark foliage instead of variegated. I actually did forget about one. Here is my Papilolaminum RA5 Self. It's got a new leaf on the way. This is another one I'm going to part with. Kind of surprised, but I have 3 other LG Paps that I prefer the look of, and that each is a little bit more distinct and unique. This one is obviously an absolutely beautiful plant, really dark foliage, great lobes and shape, but if we're talking lobes, I've got my Voldemort. If we're talking like long shape, I've got the RA6. And if we're looking for an interesting sinus, I've got the long bullet. So I really have all my like LG Pap bases covered. And this one is just like a nice all-around LG Pap. It's not really extreme in any of the categories. And unfortunately, it's just taking up like a third of a shelf. And you know, I've done one breeding project with it now. But I think I'm ready to get the space back and available for something else. Yeah, huge plant. We'll see what I'm able to do with it. I might have to just prop it into a bunch of pieces, but we'll see. You know, maybe I'll decide to hang on to it, but I think for right now I've been pretty set on the last few months on selling it and getting the space back. Otherwise, it's always so hard because these plants are beautiful, but if I kept every beautiful Anthurium that I've ever had, I would have no space for a bunch of the ones I really appreciate. Next part of the video is going to be on seedling selection, what I do, yada yada yada. I'll show some of my hybrids and show you know, the difference between the ones that are doing really well and the ones that I would cull. That way you can sort of see how variable a batch can be. Here's my first, and it's a pretty extreme example. Show these two, same batch. This one, from the beginning, I sort of picked it out as being, I think, my personal favorite from the batch. You can tell, got really excellent traits. This guy's a little too header. No reason it couldn't be beautiful. However, it just hasn't been very vigorous. So this is an example of one that I would never sell, but I would keep for myself if I'm interested in the hybrid. And here's another one from that same batch. This was the biggest one. You can really see the size difference between these two. Yeah, so sort of when I'm selecting my seedlings out, there's two categories I select along when they're quite young. I select for color first, and then, I select for vigor first, and then I select by color. So these both passed both hurdles, but obviously this one failed on the vigor. Pop the box of my seedlings down right here. So I figured I'd show you some more comparisons. Here, the one here is on its 4th leaf. This one is on its 3rd leaf. And even comparing 3rd leaf to 3rd leaf, you can really see that there's a pretty significant size difference. So this is an example of one I would cull, and here's one I would keep. You know, there's definitely plenty of the middle of the road ones where 3rd leaf, so it's not quite on its 4th, like maybe 10-15% of the batch are on. But this one is definitely still perfectly acceptable. It's got good color, it's been vigorous, and it's maybe like a leaf behind the fastest of the batch. Yeah, you know, then there's these really sickly little ones that only have 2 tiny leaves. Another example of one I would cull. I just have them in here right now because I had the space in the bin. I also like to sometimes give the seedlings a chance in case they were just struggling in the tree fern box and they just need a chance to settle in, because sometimes they can bounce back really fast and nice. But I figured I would show how I choose the seedlings, because you know, the 2 things I select for are color and vigor, and if it's not vigorous, I'm not really interested in it. So it's got to do both, because like there's so many of these tiny little nice seedlings that show really dark color, but you just, like, I don't have the time to grow out badly growing seedlings. And I definitely don't want to sell them, because it's always sad when you buy a plant and it either like doesn't grow or grows really poorly, despite what you do, and you can't really overcome the genetics of the plant. You know, I've definitely purchased some seedlings, even some very, very nice expensive seedlings, and they just never took off. And you'd see other ones from the batch that have, you know, large, mature, flowering, whatever, and yours is still a little tiny seedling. It just sucks. So I try my best to make sure I really aggressively cull. Obviously when I'm selling like germinated seeds, that's not possible. So I try to have that reflected in the prices. And the big thing when I sell germinated seeds is I feel like I try to pick out like the fattest, juiciest seeds because usually in my experience those seeds are going to turn into healthy little seedlings. And often like the smaller, more yellow, little sickly seeds are the ones that make the tiny little sickly seedlings. Okay, and then one last example of I'm going to do 2 more examples just so I can give you guys a bit of a comparison. Here are 2 Carla selves from my Arachne. You can see this one right here, nice, dark and big. Whereas this one right here, it's still dark, but it's a little small. So this is one I would probably not sell. I'd at the very least grow it out more to see if it overcomes the runtiness. But I'd probably hold this one and not sell it. Whereas something like this, you can see it's got both size and color. Yeah, but with something like these Carla selves, since I did the self to try to find ones with more spider veining, I'm probably going to hold on to all the runts and grow them out just in case any of them do any of the spider veining, because it might be, I might be able to get over my dislike of it being slow if the veins make up for it. Here's the last batch I'm going to show examples of. These are my Voldemort self pap crossed with RA6 pap. Here we have one. This one's going on to its 5th leaf. This is the 4th leaf that I'm touching. This one here is on its 3rd leaf. You can see quite the difference in size and vigor. This one is obviously one I'd be very happy to sell, whereas this one probably not. And most of the batch, I'd say, favors this end of the spectrum. Thankfully, this was a cross of 2 very, very vigorous plants. say there's a few in here that are a little on the runty side, but the majority are looking good. We're actually planning on moving the bigger ones into an open bin in the tent pretty soon, just so they can put on a little bit more size. Yeah, I think really what I was trying to do with this video is, sort of talk about and share my process for what I do to clear out the plants in my collection. Because I feel like part of the thing about being in the plant hobby long term is being comfortable letting go of plants when they aren't making you happy anymore. And if that space would either be better off empty, one less responsibility for you, or if there's something else you'd rather grow there. We're a big fan of using Facebook Marketplace, especially. It can be so freeing to just post a plant and, oftentimes within a day someone's come and picked it up and you made a little bit of money. It can be really great. Definitely like very freeing, especially if you have like a nice plant that someone would appreciate and it just isn't doing it for you anymore. Like it's okay to let them go. Yeah, if you're a breeder, once you get a few batches under your belt, definitely like hone your ability to cull. Because I feel like there's quite a few hybrids where from the first one or two leaves you can really select what you were going for and do a pretty significant cull. And it just lets you make space for, again, other things that you would rather be growing. Nothing's worse in this hobby than taking care of 100 plants that you are sick of. So at least I know for me, that turns very quickly into me just throwing them away. Thank you everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.